Alright, so for fun, I'll show the setting up of the ukulele. So I have my project set, and I just said ukulele, so let's go ahead and do the ukulele. I did a bad thing, and I have other pictures for this, but I only really got this one. I'm just going to fudge the back of it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the inside of this delightful ukulele, or I'm sorry, I don't know, the main body thing of this ukulele. So I'm actually going to start, and this is just my preference, with a cube. I'm going to go ahead and make that centered on the, or I don't care if it's centered on the Y for now, but I do care about the X and the Z, because what that allows me to do if I add in a subdivision is I can turn on symmetry on the X-axis, which will allow me to select a bird over here, and it'll just mirror what I'm doing, which is hella convenient. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is just grab these facely faces, and I'm just going to extrude them and sort of squish them around the shape of this ukulele until I get to maybe somewhere up here, at which point I'm going to take the vertices on the top of this and loop them up a little bit. And I'm also going to use my multi-cut tool or Control-Shift-X to just add a loop in. Insert edge loop tool does the exact same thing. And you'll notice that it's not perfectly symmetrical on both sides. I'm just sort of picking a side and like doing my best to match it up since I'm really bad at taking orthographic pictures. Cough, cough. So repeat the exact same process on the bottom where you just kind of keep squishing those loops out. You could honestly get away with, you know, depending. If you're doing a low poly model for a game and this is like a front asset, you probably want some more loops around there, but like if you're smoothing this, you definitely don't need them. But anywho. Doesn't really matter for now, so I'm just going to kind of do the same thing I did at the top, where I drag these down, and now you have the basic shape of a ukulele. And now we need a hole in the top of this. So in a somewhat arbitrary fashion, I'm going to pick the faces in the approximate top of this. Make sure that I don't know which side's the top over here, it doesn't really matter, but whatever. Cool, I'm going to delete those faces, and then I'm going to use my beautiful circularize tool. Go ahead and circularize that, and now we have a perfect hole shape that I am just going to scale. Important scaling note with symmetry on, it scales it not as a uniform circle, so you need to turn off symmetry, refresh your tool, just go into like the move tool and then back into scale, and then you can scale that down and turn symmetry back on as needed. Now we have a delightful looking ukulele with decent edge flow. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst, but certainly will do. Alright, so ukulele. The important thing to know about this is... I'm gonna turn off my stupid image planes in here because image planes are the worst. Okay. We can see into the back of the model, and that is really bad. So what we need to do is just quick and dirty, like, just gonna go ahead and extrude this. This model is apparently like a millimeter tall, because that is like a really, really tiny area. Anyway, so just extrude this. I'm gonna do bad and just do an arbitrary thickness, and then just reverse the normals to make sure that you can actually see the correct side of the object, and now you have the body of a very low poly ukulele that is hollow on the inside. Don't worry about any of the random bridging stuff in there. Now we need to add all of the rest of the things. So what I'm gonna do, I think the easiest part, I don't have pictures of this, but it's sort of curved on the back, so what I'm gonna do is actually go into my top view, and just make a cylinder. I have a personal pet peeve about using like 20 loops. It feels unnecessarily like a lot. So what I'm gonna do is just scale this down until it meets the approximate site of randomly like half the bridge. And I want this flat on the top, so I'm gonna delete the faces on the top of this. And go ahead and just bridge them. Lord. Oh yes, I still have symmetry. I'm a goober. Alright. So just edit, mesh, bridge them, and now you have like a perfect semicircle path that you can just sort of scale a little bit as needed and drag up to the top of your ukulele. Line that up somewhere like it should go kind of on the top of your actual thing. Line that up better. There's better ways to line this up more precisely, but for now, this is what we're going with. Alright, so now we are able to make... I'm gonna be a little bit lazy and just sort of clip this through. Alright, so now we have this, and then we can make this little sort of extruded bit that comes down over here. I'm also gonna turn off my... Oh, I did turn off my grid. Just a really crappy low resolution image. Okay. Excellent. Alright, so yeah, now we have that. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna cheat. I could add an extra loop for that little bend, but like right now, it just um. All right, so I'm just gonna scale my entire object a little bit smaller because I've been lining stuff up to this edge. Again, not exactly the most precise, but like will do for now. And then I'm gonna click all of the wrong buttons because I'm being a crazy spaz right now. Alright, so I'm going to select the top of this, and then I'm going to extrude this out, and on this particular ukulele, there's like a little bit of like a sort of thing. What I'm going to do for this is change the pivot, so I'm going to press and hold D and use V for vertex snapping, and just drag that up, and then it will scale it from the flat part of this. More instruction on that later, but for now, that's, you know, a decent way to scale stuff. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and, again, you gotta turn off symmetry if you want this to scale from, like, the actual center of the object. And then I should also, if I'm doing that, you also need to go down and sort of scale some of these to fit a little better. And there's nicer ways to do this. For now, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, because meh. Okay. So now I have the top of this. I want to grab, once again, the top faces of this ukulele, and now we're going to start making the little area thing up here. And now I'm just like really symmetry back on. What am I doing? Symmetry, yes, good. And now I'm really just sort of winging the shape because my picture is like very clearly not at all laid out correctly. And this is the importance of good reference. Alright. So cool, and it seems to be getting a tiny bit wider, and then like a tiny bit wider. Great. And I've realized I've also done a weird thing where I should have flattened part of this, but I didn't. So, yeah. Anywho, so this is getting a little weird at the top here. Yeah. And that whole thing should have been, like, bent backwards a little bit. So this is, like, where edge flow kind of becomes important, because, like, this is not at all easy to edit. So I think what I'm gonna do is temporarily make some n-gons and just control-delete those. I'm gonna add a single edge loop in the front, and then with my multi-cut tool, I'm going to just click from here. Oh boy, that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna click from these, there we go, to combine those, and then I still have a weird little n-gon here, so we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, so I'm just gonna add, just kind of multi-cut in another random extra loop there, cough. Alright, and that actually will give me enough loops to go down and do something a little bit nicer to the bottom of this. Sort of. And now I can a little bit more successfully push those down. If I were to scale these flat, it's going to give me a much nicer bend. And you can see it's, you know, pretty much just straighten out those loops. So, not exactly the most precise. Like I said, strictly speaking, the back of this should be flatter. And the whole thing should also be tapering down a little bit. So like this should be sort of like pointed back, where I'm winging the bananas out of this right now because I do not have the reference for the side of this. This is like curvy and insane, but you know, later problems. Now I have like the awkward little sort of back thing of the ukulele, and we pretty much only use 2 tools. I pretty much only used the insert edge loop tool and the extrude tool for this. So I'm gonna save this. Alright. And now we can just add a little bit extra detail. So what I would like to do, I'm not going to do this on camera, but basically we'll just make, you know, a bunch of little cylinders for these little fret bits. You can just make one and then just sort of duplicate, like scale it to be really small and duplicate it numerous times. I don't think anyone really wants to watch me do that. And then pretty much like for this little thingy up here that I can never remember the name of because I'm a goober, that's basically just a cube that you can stick on there. But position it less crazy, and then, like, all the other stuff up here is basically just, like, different flavors of scaled-down cylinders. So what I would do for this is basically just, again, like, take a cylinder, I'll do sort of one of these, just keep it, like, really, pretty generic. I'm gonna be lazy and just like add a cap onto the. I'll just select the top. Oh, oh boy, that's a lot of subdivs I don't need. So what I'd suggest for this is to just model this flat and then go in and add whatever rotation you need. And you could totally, so what I would also do is just model all of these, make one of these and then just duplicate it and move it to wherever you need it moved. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make, this picture's like pretty crappy, so I can't really see what's going on, so I'm just gonna kind of do something that looks kind of like detail and hope that it makes sense. I know there's like a peg in this thing, so I'm just gonna kind of like, cool, now we have like a weird ukulele peg. I'm not really worried about the hole in that, but now that you have that, you can just sort of rotate that into place, and it would be basically the same principle for making the stuff on the back and all of that, and then just duplicate, like once you had that, you could just put all of those little pieces in a single group, and then do modify center pivot. That'll, you know, actually put the pivot in your group, and then you just sort of duplicate that, and again, shift that into place wherever. Stuff. And then mostly also make sure it's, you know, lined up on ukulele. Cough. But yeah, so that's a sort of very basic modeling part of a ukulele.